The Real Housewives of Atlanta are back, baby, and you know we need to talk about it. Let's get into it. By the way, I'm KJ Miller. I am a founder, lecturer, and content creator. I love talking about all things business and pop culture. If you like any of that, be sure to subscribe. Now let's get into it. Now, as of yet, I don't think I have ever done any sort of Bravo show review here on my YouTube. And I really don't know why, because I spend an inordinate amount of time watching Bravo shows. But now that the rebooted Real Housewives of Atlanta is back, I simply had to talk about it. And I didn't think I could relegate all my thoughts into a 3 or 4 minute TikTok. So I said, let's come right on to YouTube and get down into it. And I will tell you right off the bat, I feel like they have shown why Atlanta was the juggernaut it was for so many seasons, because these girls bring the drama, they bring the shade, they bring the fashion, they bring the humor, they bring it all. I really feel like Atlanta is the full package when it comes to reality TV and when it comes to the housewives. So what I would like to do in this video is really go housewife by housewife of all the women who were presented in episode 1, because it was a lot of women. Go through all of them and say, just based on first impressions, who I think is going to have a strong season and who I think, at least right now, is setting themselves up for a bit of a flop. And I could be wrong, because we're literally 1 episode in, but you know, it's fun to chit chat and talk about these things. So let's get into it. So up first and foremost is my girl, Porsha Williams. Yes, honey, Porsha came in so hot, so strong, so Porsha. And I think she is setting herself up to have a very, very strong season, not just from that first episode, but also from her Watch What Happens Live with Law Roach directly afterwards. I think she is showing us why she is that girl, why she lasted on the show for so many seasons, why she got asked back after having taken a break, why she got her own spinoff, why even after multiple failed marriages and not being a housewife, she is still the #1 on the call sheet, or at the least the #1 on this list I'm looking at here on Peacock. Why she is still that girl. And that is because Porsha does not hold back when it comes to letting the cameras into her life, to her relationships, to things going on with her family. She does not hold back in her confessionals when it comes to giving her opinion on the tea and everything that's going on. And also, she has a real personality. She is charismatic. Like, when she's on screen, you want to know what she's doing. And that's been true of Porsha from the very beginning. Even back when they were trying to play her for being stupid or whatever, and you know, her Underground Railroad comments, you know, maybe at that time she wasn't quite as bright, she was still interesting. She's always been interesting. When she was part of the duo with Phaedra, the two of them together were fun and hilarious to watch. Real charisma, real humor, and is willing to share her real life when it comes to Bravo. And that is something I feel like we have seen a dearth of, particularly any of you who sat through Real Housewives of New York. And that's the other thing I actually do want to mention here before I get into the rest of the cast. I already feel like this reboot is so much stronger than the Real Housewives of New York reboot, because for that one, they got rid of everybody and gave us a completely new cast. And I do understand why they did it. The people who were left on that cast, like once Bethany wasn't there, frankly, and I'm not even a big fan of Bethany's anymore. She has blocked me on TikTok. But the truth of the matter was, she was the reason to watch that show. So after she left, I do understand why they didn't ask back anybody, not Luann, not Dorinda, not Ramona, not Sonia. Like, on the one hand, I get it, but on the other hand, if you're going to do that and start with a whole brand new cast, you need women like Porsha willing to be real about their lives and with real charisma. And I feel like most of what we saw on this season, until we got to the very end, and even that, I mean, it was real, but it was just like kind of painful to watch, if you know what I'm talking about. But for the most part, everything about New York feels so polished, so curated. We're only getting a little bit of the story. I mean, one of the major storylines was a made up fake pregnancy rumor, okay? Like, they were trying to prank everyone, and that took up multiple episodes, okay? So I just feel like that reboot to me has been not so successful. But what they have done here is they brought back some OGs who always came with the heat. They brought back Porsha as a full-time cast member. They brought back Cynthia. I think as a full-time cast member. They brought back Drew. And they brought back Kenya. It looks like Kenya is more of a friend of. And then they mixed in some new folks as well as who we will talk about, Shamea, who was never a full-time cast member, but who we always saw in all the seasons and now very much is full-time. So there's enough for those of us who grew up watching Real Housewives of Atlanta to sink our teeth into, because we recognize these ladies, we recognize a lot of their dynamics, but also there are some new people in the mix to like freshen it up. Okay, so I just think that decision in and of itself, great decision. I think they learned from whatever mess they put together with New York, that trying to like bring back just only new people was not going to work. So let me just say that. But as it relates to Porsha, I think she is setting herself up to have a very good season. And the other thing I think she is doing is she kind of very early is establishing like who's with her and who's against her. And I do think in these shows, that is a smart thing to do. That ensures you have a storyline throughout the entire season. Because if you're against everybody, if nobody wants to kick it with you, it's hard to film. So we've already seen, okay, she's still close with Shamea. That's still her homegirl. Maybe it'll get rocky, but like as of now, she's still good with Shamea. She's still good with Cynthia. Okay, so she's still got a close relationship there. And even Kenya, it looks like there's still a bit of a key there, right? So she's established kind of her home base. Now she's got these new girls coming in, one of whom came hard immediately, Kelli, who I'll get into. So that's already a line in the sand. She don't like her, okay? And Kelly's homegirl, whose name I can't currently remember, but I will by the time I talk about her, I feel like is going to be on her side. So lines are being drawn, and that's just going to make for a more interesting season. And I feel like Porsha is sort of establishing that right out the gate. It was, kind of established for her by Kelli being rude, but either way, right out the gate, I think sets her up for success. So Porsha, I think is going to have a good season. Let's continue. And actually, before I get into the rest, I just scrolled all the way down to this article I'm reading on Peacock. They do call out Cynthia, but as a friend, which is interesting. They don't call out Kenya at all. And Kenya was all up and through that first episode. So I assumed she was being invited back as a friend. But now that I'm thinking about it, I didn't see her in a confessional. So, okay, so there you have it. However, Phaedra is also in here as a full-time cast member who comes back later in the season. So this is very interesting. I'm very happy about all of this, but let's continue down this list that they have here. The next person they have listed here is Drew Sidora. Now, let me tell you something about Drew. I personally never found Drew to be all that interesting. I hated her husband. I'm glad she's leaving him. He was a dud and terrible and a gaslighter and all of those things. So none of their scenes were ever interesting to me. I always was like, please get him off my television. Her singing career, I'm happy for her. That's what she wants to do. I'm happy she wants to do it. But I don't know. She never grabbed me in terms of whether or not I think she's going to have a successful season. Right now, it's giving middle of the road, which is where, for me, she's always been. I think if I had to guess why Bravo continues to call her back, because they continue to call her back, it's because she helps move the storyline along enough. She's friends with enough people. She keeps enough conversations going. Like, I guess you do need people like that on your show. Not everyone can be a Porsha, super charismatic, always in the drama. So, okay, and maybe given this storyline they're starting to establish with Dennis being her, is he her manager? I'm very confused about, is he her manager, her producer, whatever he is to her, that is setting up a tension between her and Porsha. So I do think that should at the very least be interesting. But in terms of whether I think she's going to have a successful season, it's reading very middle of the road for me. And it always has for Drew. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see where it goes. Maybe she'll surprise me and have an amazing season. And by the end, she'll be sitting right next to Andy Cohen on that reunion couch. Who knows? Right now, it's giving middle of the road. Up next, Shamea, Morton, Mwangi. Apologies if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Shamea. I am so happy that they upgraded Shamea from a friend to a full-time cast member, because clearly, one, she's got the funds. Okay. It seems pretty clear she's the richest of the group, which shouts to her and her husband who works in HVAC. And let me tell you something about these HVAC businesses. Actually, a good friend of mine just got into HVAC as well. These are good cash producing businesses. Okay. So if you are looking for a business to start, you might want to get up in this HVAC business. I'm just saying. These are steady businesses. People always need an HVAC installed and or repaired, and they produce a lot of cash. So, I mean, look at this. So I am happy that they upgraded her. I'm happy that she herself called out that in the past, she's always been known mostly as Porsha's ride or die. But I think in this first episode, we really see her on her own. We see her relationships with the other wives separate from Porsha. Yes, she sticks up for Porsha when Porsha's being called out, but I don't get the sense that we're going to see her being relegated to only being Porsha's bestie in this season. So I actually think Shamea is setting herself up for success. I think she kind of called Porsha out when she was late and kind of messed up her moment. So I do foresee there being a little bit of potential clash between her and Porsha. I don't think it's going to be something that they can't come back from. But even that, I think, is going to be an interesting storyline. And I think the fact that she's sort of out the gate, she throws the first party, she gets her Rolls Royce, living the Lux life. We talk about her journey with fertility and her baby. I think they are setting her up to have a real main character moment. And I love that for Shamea. We've seen her on our screens for a long time, but we've never really gotten to dig deep. So I do believe Shamea is setting herself up to have a successful season, because there's been little plants of a little bit of drama, real drama, potentially between her and Porsha, and also between maybe her and the other ladies, because she's sticking up for Porsha so much, but not so much tension. She's not coming in so hot like another lady who I'm going to talk about. She's not coming in so hot that you feel like, okay, you don't know when to pull it back a little bit. Like you're coming in way too hot for reality TV. I don't get that sense from her. I don't get that vibe for her. So I think Shamea is going to have a successful season. So now we get started with the newer faces. First up, I'm going to talk about is Kelli Farrell. Kelli, in my opinion, terrible first episode. Terrible first episode. Not terrible in terms of viewing for me. I enjoyed the viewing, but I feel like she made the classic housewife mistake of coming in way too hot and coming way too hard for an established OG. This almost never works, okay? What it works in doing is giving you a storyline for that season, but what it doesn't work in doing is connecting you to the audience. Right now, I have no reason to root for Kelli. None whatsoever. I don't know anything about you. All I know is the first thing you said to Porsha when you first met her is, why did you steal that girl's man? And even if that's what you were thinking, even if that's what a lot of people are thinking, why would that be the first thing you say to somebody? In real life, it would never be the first thing you say to someone. That's not how you approach people. That's not how you meet people. So that tells me you only did it because you're on TV and you're trying to have a moment, secure a moment, and secure your storyline. And I just think audiences can see through that. Now, to me, there is a way to still have this discussion and have it in a way where it still elicits the drama that you clearly are hoping it will elicit, but without making it basically your whole personality for an entire episode. It just, to me, reads as inauthentic. It reads as unnecessary. I'm hoping she can come back from it and prove to be a more essential housewife. But right now it just sort of seems like, oh, your only role is to talk shit. Okay, because if that's your only role, there will always be a million women who can come online and talk shit. Always. There will always be a million women who can do that. So then the question is, what makes you irreplaceable? And looking at her, and so far what we've got, I don't know. I think she is setting herself up for a bad first season and potentially not being asked back. So we'll see. Again, it's early. We're only on season 1. But I think coming in that hot and that hard against an OG like Porsha, I've seen it go wrong too many times. I don't know. Now, the next newcomer I want to talk about is Brit Edie. Now, listen. For me, for episode 1, she came across as a little bit forgettable, but I actually think her also and the other new girl is Angela Oakley. Both of them to me came across as slightly forgettable in this episode. However, I think that is better than coming in too hot because you have a full season to build, okay? So She's established who she is. She sells insurance. She has a man who she loves and who bought her a very, very expensive ring. She caught a little bit of shade from Kenya. And you know, Kenya's the shade assassin, okay? So she's going to shade any and everybody. I didn't mind that shade personally. She caught a little bit of that shade but still moved on, moved forward. It looked like she and Kenya were maybe going to mend fences, whatever. So I feel like it was a soft entrance, you know, it was like a soft launch for Brit. And I actually think that might be smart. Does that mean she's definitely going to have a successful season? No. Right now, she's sort of giving a little bit middle of the road to me, similar to Drew in terms of will it be a good season or not for her? I think the risk for her, though, like I think Kelli's risk is that she just straight up has a bad season. The audience ends up hating her and she doesn't get asked back. Brit's risk is that she's boring and doesn't get asked back. So we'll see. I'm not hoping that for her, but right now she's kind of reading a little bit middle of the road for me. And then the last newcomer is Angela. Yeah, I didn't get a lot from Angela this episode. I did not get a lot from her at all, other than she's married to a basketball legend and her wig wouldn't stay on. And that's not a lot to give in an episode 1. It's not super memorable. It's giving like every episode I get, every chance I get, I'm going to bring up my husband because he's a legend. Okay, I'm nervous for Angela. I really am. I would say she also is giving a little bit middle of the road, like Brit, but if only one of them were going to survive, I right now would give it to Brit, because Angela to me just nothing. There was nothing memorable whatsoever, like other than her husband. And if the most memorable thing about you is your husband, you're not gonna make it on this show. So let's hope that we get more from Angela in future seasons. Right now, she's giving kind of seat filler. We'll see. So the last full-time cast member apparently is Phaedra Parks. They're saying on Peacock that she makes her entrance later in the season. And I have to tell you, I am so excited for Phaedra. Phaedra just knows how to make good TV. She knows how to make good television. She knows how to come in with a good quip, with a good joke, with some good shade. She knows how to read a situation. I'm excited for her. I don't know yet if it's going to be good or bad season because she wasn't on this episode, but I'm excited for Phaedra. And then that leaves us with Cynthia, who apparently is coming back as a friend. And friend makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. I think Cynthia, she's had some stronger seasons in the past, but she always played more of a supporting actor role to me, like supporting Nene, supporting Kenya, supporting, whomever. That's kind of the role she always played, and she was very good at it. And I think helped, again, move storylines along. But friend makes sense to me. We'll see if she gives us anything exciting and they end up making her a full-time cast member again for the next season. But for now, I think she played the supportive friend well in this episode, which is what she typically does. And that makes sense because she's a friend of. So all in all, I have to tell you, I thought it was a really good first episode. I thought we saw plenty of drama between the girls. Yes, we saw the drama of Porsha's divorce and everything going on there. We saw Kenya be her classic shady self and kind of interject with the shade right at the right moments, in my opinion, to make it interesting and fun. We saw the luxe, wealthy life of Shamea and some of the other girls. It just gave us all of the things we want with enough like shade and drama mixed in, the drama between Drew potentially and Porsha. Once we really get Dennis in the mix, it left off on a good cliffhanger, like what really is going on with Dennis. It gave you all the things you want. If you're going to be someone who enjoys Real Housewives, this is what you want. You want shade, you want drama, you want tea, you want gossip, you want wealth, you want fashion, you want humor, you want jokes, you want all of it, and it delivered. So I'm very, very excited for the season. I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments. Who do you think is being set up for a good season? Are you down with how they have rebooted it? Let me know your thoughts. And of course, if you like this sort of content, be sure to subscribe. I'll see you next time.